starting our first panel discussion here. Of course, if we are going towards the golden age here in the Baltics when it comes to energy, policy has to be in place and has to help that grow and succeed. And the policy update is our topic for the next session, which will explore the latest developments in wind energy policy across the Baltic states. And we are excited to welcome on the stage the panelists for our first talk. Let's invite the participants. First of all, the State Secretary of the Climate and Energy Ministry of Latvia, Ms. Līga Kurevska. Let's welcome her. Next up, representing Estonia, its Deputy State Secretary of the Ministry of Energy, Mr. Jaanus Uiga. Welcome. Welcoming back on the stage the CEO of Ignitis Group, Mr. Darius Maikstenas. Yeah. Welcome. Welcome back. And moderating this talk, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome him back on the stage, the CEO of WindEurope, Mr. Giles Dickson. Welcome, Giles. Take it away.
Well, 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 how fantastic it is to be sitting with the three of you. I was looking at some numbers the other day. Between the three countries, in 2018, 60% of all of your electricity came from fossil fuels. Today, 72% is coming from renewables. Wow. If we look at the wind numbers only, in just 3 years, the share of wind in your collective electricity mix has risen from 15% to 28%. Līga, you've done some great things, as we were describing earlier, to push wind energy in Latvia. What are the next great things that the government is going to be doing to support wind?
Excellent. Thank you so much for coming, and it's a pleasure to be on this panel again. I would like to start with one major thing. Already Darius mentioned it in the keynote. Today, here with us is also representatives from our grid operators. And I would like to take a moment to congratulate Baltic states with synchronization. I have never been closer with my Baltic brothers and sisters like it was in February. We were basically in constant communication. And that was a marvelous thing. And I think it's a great testament for that, what our tiny countries can truly do. So thank you so much for everybody who was in the project for doing that. So perhaps a tiny look. Yeah. So on this fantastic achievement, I think that we have more than shown what Baltics can do. And also numbers you mentioned, I think is just as excellent. I was also looking at numbers yesterday preparing for similar event, and I was looking how the retail market has developed, particularly for our household users, and there we have also seen fantastic developments. In short 2 years, the actual price for electricity paid by our consumers have reduced by 30%, which is so impressive if we understand how the price developments have happened in our countries in general. Also, numbers you already mentioned about how much more wind we have. Well, we have to say thank you to our Lithuanian colleagues on that one. But overall, the quite high share of renewables have always been sort of Latvian domain. And while today, and at the moment, Lithuania has taken the crown on the development the quickest, we truly want to fight for it and compete to be back on the top on the renewable hill that Baltics are. About what is to come. So last year was extremely exciting for energy sector. Again, I have met many of you on numerous meetings with different dynamics in those, but the result has been really fantastic. We have now, in my opinion, the most modern regulation regarding grid connections, introducing these flexible grid connections that truly allows to use the grid more efficiently and hopefully can be used by others when they enter the high renewable type of system. Secondly, we have made also the basic framework for PPAs. In Latvia, we are not looking forward at the moment towards CFD regulation, but we see that PPAs, particularly considering also state de-risked PPAs, might be the way forward to ensure that price volatility does not add too much risk for our electricity producers, and therefore we can receive these really good prices green energy promises us for us to get. Thirdly, permitting. Already Latvia and Lithuania are countries where the environmental assessment study is one of the easiest and the shortest procedure in all Europe. That was also highlighted in Draghi report. However, when we were looking at the reality, we saw that sometimes what is written on paper does not truly translate to what we see in reality. So for this and next year, we will be working very closely with our colleague Ministry of Economics to ensure that the all development cycle, starting from the project development and ending with the commissioning, is streamlined. That we focus on monitoring and control and ensuring that everybody plays by the same rules, and the rules are reasonable and truly aimed at sustainable development. So the development of this regulation is quite detailed, and I'm so excited about it that I can speak very, very long about that, so I will not try to bore you on this topic. But we believe that we will together together working with NGOs as well as the industry representatives, we will truly create a better streamlined situation that everybody can learn from. And thirdly, obviously resilience. So we do not live in times where we can take free trade for granted, where we can take security for granted. Unfortunately, we are not. So one of the main focus regarding our grid connections as well as our economy in general is to move forward self-sufficiency on strategic autonomy, similarly to as all Europe, but even more so in Baltics. And green energy is the essence of this. We cannot produce much of fossil in Latvia. We do not have the resources for that. But we have fantastic resources for green, sustainable, and well-developed energy. So it was extremely exciting year last, and it is very exciting year also this year. So to conclude, moving forward with environmental assessment studies, developing more rigid and fit for the purpose offshore wind regulation, and focusing on how can we build more on the inside.
Thank you, Līga. Jaanus, Estonia last year almost doubled your installed capacity of onshore wind. What are the next great things we can look forward to in Estonia?
Yes, and hello and my greetings to everyone here. And I will definitely join in with Līga in congratulating everyone who contributed to this massive project of synchronization of the Baltic grids. I mean, we're here in the WindWorks conference. Why mention it? It's a little known fact that it also helps a lot regarding integrating more renewables into our system, not only with the help of these synchronous condensers, but with the help of strengthening our grid. So it was a massive project that helped in many ways. But that is the past. Obviously, for some people, they're still fixing some things and making sure that everything is working. But I like what you said, that this has already been done like 3 years ago. We need to look into the future. So what's happening? I am not that excited about doing legislative changes as Līga. I mean, it is our job, but like there is always such an interesting pile-in of new ideas that getting any changes through is a large undertaking. And my suggestion to all the market participants is to find ways how to make things work within the existing legal system and not wait for some magical change to help out, because when you wish for a change, the change might materialize in a way that does not benefit you. This is the historical experience. But many things we have been fixing and will be fixing in the future. Obviously, there are many developments happening at the same time. So currently in our parliament, we are also doing a grid connection reform, so will be easier and more predictable on the cost side how to connect to the grid. So still in the final phases of discussions, but we're hoping to get this one through in May through the parliament, and then the TSO can start implementing it. So there will be a fixed connection fee. Right now, the connection fee is based on where your location is at. So that means that if your renewable electricity project is somewhere where the connection fee is high, then right now it's not that feasible. After the change will become better. And then obviously the helping out storage, we will introduce or make sure that storage will only pay for the net consumption, so not all the consumption, the grid fees. That law is also in the parliament, and we're pretty sure that it will go through during May and then enter into force, and also the demand response market, etc., etc. So there's a lot of interesting developments happening, but every time you introduce a legislative change, you will also have to make sure that you check whether everything is working as you wanted it. But the main thing right now, so we had a massive increase of wind capacity, or obviously nowhere near where Lithuania is. I mean, like, amazing job. I was away for like 1.5 years, and then came back, you had like 1,000+ megawatts of wind. Where did you get it? But really, I really need to know. But we are working on it as well. These projects have been under development, that were completed, had been under development for many years now. The new ones, right now, it's not about even planning itself for environmental permitting or grid connections. It's about the value proposition of the wind parks to the local communities. This is where we've gotten at, because there has been a slowdown in the planning procedure movement during the recent months. We had a very good headwind, we had a very strong pipeline, at least on paper, in the second half of last year. And then, as local municipality elections are getting closer, that will happen in the end of Q3 this year. Then the planning procedures started to slow down. We see a lot of mobilization regarding people saying that wind energy is bad, there's some health effects, etc. So we're racing to solve these things. But yeah, the main thing that we're seeing right now is that people don't understand what they're getting from these wind parks, and this value proposition is something that really needs working on. We see that it's hugely valuable. Also, what you showed, there's good benefits for the economy. But I mean, like, when you're the person who has the wind park next to it, like, who cares about the economy? You care about money in your pocket, and then even with the maximum 5,000+ euros per year that the people nearby the wind park can get, even that seems low, so they still want, like, hey, but what about my electricity price? Can I get that lower? So it's very interesting. So we're actively working with developers, with local municipalities, with other ministries, other state agencies to get these planning procedures moving again, and so we would have a healthy pipeline of projects for when we do our onshore wind CFD.
Thank you, Jaanus. Līga.
I'd love to compliment on that one. We already had a short discussion this morning on how we are living in post-truth society. So I do believe that when we have also met with communities, you can divide the arguments in two parts. One of those is very practical things that you can truly solve. What is benefit for me? What will happen with the value of my estate? What will be the benefits for me? Because obviously the better electricity prices are for everybody, better business for everybody, but what about me? Which is perfectly reasonable question. However, a large part of these concerns are clearly not based on what happens with me, but what is the effects of wind farm on communities in general. And I have noticed a very interesting trend. Similarly, like when the synchronization was approaching, we started to see very interesting things happening in public media. We saw very interesting things happening in social media, particularly in the not very fact-burdened platform of TikTok, which is fairly popular also in Baltic states. And what we see there is a massive distribution of disinformation. And as I said already in this morning, I do not expect our people or society to be very well versed in the technology or energy. This is a very specific topic. I am particularly excited about it, obviously, like for regulation, but nobody needs to be. So we are also working on how can we fight with this disinformation, which happens to reach all 3 Baltic countries at the same time. Like with synchronization, where there was a massive public campaign on how we will all be without electricity for weeks, if I remember correctly, in Estonia, for 3 days in Latvia, for 2 weeks in Estonia. There were very similar little pages in the multi-flat apartment buildings saying that apocalypse is approaching, it's imminent. So, like it has been for the last 20 or so years, we have seen that there is third parties from probably east side that do not want Europe to be self-sufficient, do not want Baltics to be self-sufficient energy-wise, for again, very reasonable things that you can imagine why. So I think that we are not only speaking about this part which we can solve, we have to find a way how communities feel that when they contribute with land and their comforts, they are compensated. That's very reasonable. But we have to work with that part which is absolutely untrue, unfact-based, and which makes people worried about the future of our countries. And that will take probably also all 3 country common involvement. So just that's an issue at the moment in Baltics.
Who are the best people to counter misinformation and disinformation? Is it you, the national governments? Is it the municipal governments? Is it the wind farm developers? Or is it outside independent experts?
I am afraid that post-COVID, the state is not the party which enjoys the highest trust from our society. We need to rebuild that. We have done some not so great things, and we need to, you plow what you sow. I do believe that the main aspect that we can use to combat disinformation is allowing people to see the facts and numbers. It's just the grind work. For example, we meet with communities who are against wind, and we discuss with them. And they are reasonable people, they are patriots. They want our country to be prosperous. So I do believe in my heart of hearts that if we just give people the correct information, they will make the best decision. So it must be the people in communities. It can't be stages that says, you do not understand anything, the wind will be built here, I do not care what you think. This is not how state should interact with its people. We are not here for ourselves, we are here for our people. So giving the correct information to communities and trusting that they will make the right decision.
Thank you, Jaanus.
Yes, so I am an energy engineer by trade, and then this communication and how social factors impact people is new to me. But I due to necessity, I've needed to read into it and learn more about it. So. It's not there's no one single silver bullet, so everyone must contribute. The state must do communication that only they can do. So let's take health impacts, potential health impacts. The Ministry of Social Affairs or whichever relevant ministry can say, hey, we've looked at the science, no issues. Then the developers, when they're going and having these local discussions, have to be able to say, hey, we've looked into this, there's nothing there. This is our value proposition. Happy to answer to more questions. We cannot silence these questions. And then you need to understand that people who are against, who want to be against, they cannot be convinced. So you need to convince people who are still undecided. So there are people who go around and have their very good slide deck. They believe in their heart of hearts that they're doing the right thing, that they're telling facts. You need to be prepared for it. Developers need to be prepared for it. The government people need to be prepared for it and counter these facts, but not thinking that there's no point in thinking that you can change their mind. You can change the mind of other people who haven't decided it.
Thank you. Darius, fantastic speech. Now, tell us, what has happened in Lithuania to get community, local support for all these wind farms that you've been developing that we've been hearing about?
Several reasons, I would say. First of all, local developers, including ourselves, but not only us, we were working very closely with local communities. And in very early stages, not the last minute kind of meeting is important. So to build long-term good neighborhood relationships, it's a long and tough job. And we dedicate huge resources, not only financial, but also people dedicated only for community work. And we are meeting a lot of communities and engaging them on the permanent basis. Another angle is on the national level. I think the breakthrough happened when kind of common understanding of price efficiency of renewables become kind of publicly acknowledged. Because at the early stages, renewables were, okay, every renewable needs the support, and it's expensive, and it's for climate change. And it's not anymore. Wind and in some parts of solar is most cost-efficient generation source, just that general public does not know in some countries. So in Lithuania, I think on the national level, 3-4 years ago, even earlier, 5 maybe, the kind of public awareness that, okay, this is a way not only to gain energy security, but also competitive prices, is invest in renewables. So these two major things. The third one, yes, when you have the problem push you kind of to move faster. So we were very dependent on import. And especially during the energy crisis when Ukraine war started, we experienced quite obviously that too high dependence on the import strikes quite hard. So multiple factors, I would say.
Līga, Jaanus, do people in Latvia and Estonia understand that more wind means lower electricity bills?
Well, I think to extent, yes. We also have graphs and data and everything, and obviously it's quite easy to prove that it is correct. However, first of all, I think, as Darius mentioned, there is this historical idea that green means expensive, which is, again, not true anymore, absolutely no way. But obviously, everybody can build something that is expensive. That's not particularly hard. It's hard to make things cheap and cost efficient. So there is some worries about that. I think that we are really looking forward to Lithuania building lots of wind, and at some point people have feeling that that will be enough. So we have to work to explain also how the electricity market works, which is something from one side great that people know. When you better understand electricity markets, you will be more electricity efficient, you will work better, and you will do best for yourself. On the other side, electricity markets are complicated. And whether everybody needs to understand them very, very closely, well, we only have that much memory in our minds, so let's see. I think overall we still have to do a bit of work. I imagine both state level as well as municipal level as well as developer level that shows in a way that is not easy to dispute that more wind means cheaper electricity. I understand that it is perhaps easier to say, well, that's so obvious. But the reality is that we have, at least in Latvia, I don't know that detailed social context in Estonia and Lithuania, but in Latvia, we have a bit of different fact base, as I mentioned. And I do believe that we need to do our homework to close the gap between what is the best science at the moment and what perhaps is more popular in TikTok platform. It just needs to be, widened, made closer.
Mm-hmm. Jaanus?
Yes, so I think convincing or explain, there is more convincing and explaining to do by all sides. Who has been reading Estonian media, especially in February, there were lengthy discussions on different news outlets on how to calculate the price of electrical energy and what makes it cheaper and what not. So Estonians are superstitious on this. I'm also an Estonian. I'm also superstitious. I like to check my facts myself, and there are many opinions, and not only in TikTok. Very esteemed academics are saying that no, but XYZ solution is better. So there's a lot of explaining still to be done to explain why renewables are cheaper overall. Taking into account all the system costs, because that's what now is coming back. But wait. This is zero price electrical energy. What about the other costs that you need to pay for the dispatchable capacities? So there's a lot of moving elements there. And it's an interesting problem to solve. And then the second question is, okay, it's cheaper, but why not have someone else build it? Why do it here? The Lithuanians are very good at it, so why not? But then there's another explanation. But hey, maybe it kind of makes sense to have something on Estonian soil as well. So yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You talked about these reforms to storage that are going through your parliament at the moment. Are you making sure that the operators of storage capacity only pay the relevant charges once, that they're not paying when they charge and then they pay when they discharge? You have this double taxation issue with storage in some countries.
Yes, so that's what we're doing right now. After this change is implemented, the storage owners, developers will only pay for the net consumption. So, so consumption minus production, so to say.
Got it.
Yeah.
Excellent. Darius?
For Baltic states, it very helps when we compete. So, yes, it is already in Lithuania, so Estonians should be fast to change the legislation just to compete for best systems as well. So, it sounds funny, but it helps.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, if to look further, we have to integrate our markets even more. We are too fragmented and too small to gain all the advantages. After synchronization, right now we have single ancillary service market. It's just early beginning, but it's already single. And I think unavoidable, 3 Baltic states gradually will reach single bidding zone solution sooner or later. Looking further, I can imagine more and more discussions why we have to support using, let's say, CFD. Let's take not wind, nuclear in Estonia. Let's see. While it will be too big for Estonia, but Estonians would need to pay for CFD. And Lithuanians and Latvians will free ride. So I don't have good recipe today, but I would suggest 3 governments to discuss more and more how they could coordinate strategic, first of all, modeling strategies. Okay, how much of capacities will be built where and what kind of support is needed, because at a certain level, it would stop all our development because everybody will think that others will do the job. And that could be the major issue, I would say, after 3-4 years, definitely. So more deeper integration just from the strategic and modeling side. And I would imagine, at least for large-scale projects, I would see a single Baltic market in the future. It would cost for end users least money to achieve most benefit if we could combine all potential and to have much more liquid market in the future. Maybe I'm running too fast and too far, but the kind of all things start when we say first word. So I would say after synchronization, after single ancillary service market, Baltic state should have an ambition to have a single, so to say, CFD market or something like that, which would benefit. Because we are integrated, we are correlated markets, and Lithuanians gain from Latvian hydro, Latvians from Lithuanian winds, and vice versa. So those areas will converge unavoidably sooner or later.
What do you think, Līga?
Yes. I think that we sometimes underestimate how well we can cooperate, because usually we're like a family. We are really united against a common enemy, but we are very competitive on the inside. And some of our discussions goes in much more dynamic way as one would expect from people who smile only when there is a reason to, which is all 3 Baltic countries, of course. You don't, that's weird to smile when you don't have a good reason for that. But we have shown that despite being quite different and very competitive, we are capable of creating common markets much quicker than countries which are well established also in Central Europe. We have common balancing market from 2016. Again, not easily replicated because you have to have quite high level of trust among TSOs. We have a common gas market, which is something everybody wants, but only very few countries are able to create. Already happening from 2019, if I'm not wrong. We have the single ancillary market, which is in its developing stages, and I wouldn't say that we have managed everything there perfectly and there is nothing to improve. There is things to improve. There are things to improve. But we are capable of doing it, despite that requiring TSOs to agree on the very feared concept of inter-TSO compensations. Whether we can stretch it towards common CFD approach, I wouldn't be sure. At least I wouldn't see it at the moment, since we still have quite different energy mix and quite different ambition. What I do see and what I have seen very beneficial, particularly in the energy sector, our ability to streamline regulation and identify where we have the same opinion. And I would like to highlight demand response as something where I truly feel that we can create as common approach as possible, because demand response is the thing that will help us also to limit the variability of our prices, which is at the moment higher issue than all other issues with our prices at the moment. And we are also seeing, hey, you did something great with grid connections, what can we learn? We already have quite similar environmental assessment procedures. We're saying, all right, what you have tested, what we can do. We are studying very carefully how do you give back to community. We were in detail looking both at Estonian model and Lithuanian model, what makes sense, what works. Obviously, we are not there yet, as we still have, as I said in previous section, there is a gap that we need to close. But ability to streamline regulation is something that we can and should do. Of course, it's tricky because we do not have any Baltic government and we don't have some Baltic coordinator. But I think a great next step is something also we have suggested for this year is coordinating our energy strategies among Baltic states. It's on our agenda. And I think that is really a good first step and goes very well with what you mentioned. You have to vision things, and then you can move forward. So I wouldn't say that all regulation can be harmonized. But if we look what we have already achieved and what we have in pipeline, Baltics have done so much more than many other countries.
You talked about state-backed PPAs, state de-risked PPAs were your words. Who do you envisage being the off-takers in these PPAs? Private sector, public sector, perhaps?
I will not go into details on PPA design, because this is a discussion we need to have with associations. But what we are working with is both our off-takers and our producers. We are now having the framework enshrined in law, and we're working on the regulation that is secondary regulation. We're looking at models already in place in Europe, but off-takers, at least in our vision, is our larger energy users that work for exporting products and drives our economy. Because obviously, revitalizing our economy via green energy and cheap electricity is what we, together with Ministry of Economics at the moment, see as a way forward for the country in general. But PPAs is something also we will definitely discuss with Lithuanian and Estonian colleagues. What can we learn from each other? How can we make them as similar as possible to have a better investment environment while keeping our competitive edge? Because as you mentioned, when we compete, we truly strive and do the best.
Jaanus, I liked what you said earlier about finding ways to work with existing systems. You prefer to do that than to bring in new legislation. Now, in your existing system in Estonia, there was a process in 2023 of awarding rights to a number of onshore wind farms, and some of those have been built or are being developed. I think you said yourself there's been a slowdown in the planning and the permitting, and you mentioned the municipal elections this autumn. Some developers of wind farms in Estonia are saying, well, you know, we're meant to be commissioning these projects by 2027. That's the deadline under the existing system, and we're not sure we're going to make it because of the slowdown in planning and permitting. Now, what's your reaction to that? What are you doing to counter that?
Yes, so this is something that has come to light in the recent months. So obviously, if the winners of the last CFD auction come to us and say, hey, there are some issues, this is the rationale, then we'll look into it, we see what can be done, what are the existing ways. Changing something that has backdating effect is super difficult, if not impossible, because then there are others saying, but hey, if I would have known that this change will be implemented, then I would have come to bid into that CFD auction. Then, so we are going right now. We are going through what the rationale is behind it. What are the reasons? What has been done? Where did they get stuck? And try to find the best ways how to help these projects while ensuring that there's justice also for other developers. Our end goal is to have these projects built and not get stuck on endless arguments. And these are real projects that are being developed. We are still like in 2025. 2027 is a couple of years away, although some might say it's already yesterday. But yeah, so we are working to still, our goal is to get more renewables online, and we are doing everything we can to help any project.
Okay, thank you. Līga.
Yes, so why I'm so excited about changing regulation? Well, I agree completely that retroactive regulation is a menace that should be avoided whenever possible. But there is a trade-off in policy making between ensuring that your regulation is flexible enough to recognize the changes in industry, and it is stable and foreseeable enough for investors to take your word for something. And that's not an easy thing to do. Why perhaps our ministry is more interested in changing things is that we were originally created because the regulation for energy was behind 3 years, more or less. We had a bit of Wild West, and we are still trying to manage the consequence of regulation being for a situation where there is no interest in renewable development, which changed in 2022 to something where there is a high interest in renewables. And you need a very different regulation in these two kind of situations. And we are still trying to ensure that we are fit for the future. The way how we manage is that in our energy strategy, we have included energy roadmaps. So policy roadmaps, which indicate this is what the country will do, from policymaker will do for the next 10, 15 years. The horizon is 2050. If the conditions that we can't change, like our GDP, how much cost the capital cost of Latvia, investments in R&D, etc. So we take the conditions which define our investment environment and say, this is our focus, this is what we will develop, this is what we will reiterate, because our regulation needs some iterations for it to make sure that it is fit for purpose. But then if something happens, like the shocks we had previously, we have scenarios which are worse than our current geopolitical situations, and two which are best. So we can already indicate, all right, if GDP growth is significantly higher than we predict at the moment, cost of capital is really lower, investment in R&D is higher, we will refocus. We will focus more on that policy area and do these things instead of these. So that is how we are planning to manage the trade-off, so we are not again in a situation where the industry is so much in front of where the regulation is that we are creating inconveniences both industry, society, and policymakers as well. So that is the approach how we try to balance, and hence I'm very excited.
Great. Master of Ceremonies, the time has come for us to yield back to you, but before we do, ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm round of applause to these excellent panelists.
Thank you. And a round of applause to our excellent moderator, Mr. Giles Dickson. Thank you. Thank you, Giles, for the discussion.